Well, good afternoon to you. 406 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, we're going to be joined by EJ Antoni at 4:30. We'll talk to him about the state of our economy. Spoiler alert, not good. And then Julie Kelly is here at 5:30. We'll talk about the state of our government. Spoiler alert, not good. I don't know what to tell you. Not good. It's always good to talk to you, though, at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Yeah, we'll be talking about the economy with EJ coming up. And here's Fox Business with a report on how things are going.
All right, well, the cost of living squeeze. How far does your money go? Well, it requires $119.27 to buy the same household goods and services as you could with just $100 before the pandemic. Let's take a look at some of the prices under President Biden. You can see here natural gas, that's up 29%. Groceries up 25%. Those used cars higher in price by 35%. Electricity up 25%. Of course, the troubling trend here, guys, these are all necessities.
Yeah, seriously. Well, don't worry. Only power and food is up by astronomical levels. Everything else is totally fine. Totally fine. You need more money? We'll print it. It's so crazy. It is crazy. Let's bring in Kevin in Manassas. He's calling in now on line one. Kevin, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Callahan Show.
Hey, Vince, always good to talk to you. I just offer a little anecdotal evidence to the fact that, the economy is not good. And although correctly so, the Biden administration always touts how people are making more money. I make about $6 an hour more than I did back in 2018-19 when Trump was president before the pandemic. But I made over six figures as a crane operator back then, and I made about $6 an hour less than I make now. And I had negotiated a fairly sweet deal for myself. I work for a small crane company. About 70% of what we do is new home construction, trusses, and things of that nature. So we're kind of tied to that industry. We work for a lot of different carpenters and home builders.
Yeah.
And, work by the hour, but I've negotiated a guaranteed 40 hours a week, which basically I get 40 hours a week no matter what. And whatever overtime I make, I get. And that helps out on rainy days, bad weather. Well, I just have a baseline where I know I'm going to make a minimal amount of money. And I like to think because of my ability and the people I work for are pretty good that we came to a nice agreement. Well, I was informed yesterday, that with the state of the economy and interest rates and, things slowing down because nobody's buying these homes anymore because they can't afford them,
right,
thanks to Joe Biden, that I can't get that guarantee anymore. Now, I don't want anybody to cry me a river. I'm going to make it. But that's something that's taken away from me. And like I said, even though I'm making more money per hour, I'm making a lot less now, and prices are a lot higher. So the Biden administration and the White House is completely just flat out lying when they tell people that we're making more money. Yeah, we're making more money, but so what? I can make $1 million if it costs me $2 million to live. I'm bankrupt.
You have one of the most impressive jobs in home construction, by the way. So you operate the crane and you lift the trusses and help assemble the roof. It's so neat to watch that all happen. You have to have a very fine motor skill for that, don't you? Like in terms of just accurately placing this stuff.
It's a wasted youth on video games.
It's cool though.
But no, I'm blessed to have a skill and an ability to do something. Thank God. And when I was in high school, I never had any idea that I would ever be running heavy equipment for a living. I had different aspirations, but as life had it, I came down, and this was some of the things I got into. I've been an equipment operator over 21 years, and I'm looking at the way the economy is. And in fact, my boss, he told me, he said, man, we're a small company, probably about less than 10 employees. And the reason I work for a company like this, that's why I say I don't want nobody crying me a river. I can go work for a big crane company and make a lot more money, but I call that gladiator work. You're working nights, weekends, 24 hours a day. You're on. I have a good quality of life. I pretty much have a 6-to-6 schedule most days. Yes, there's exceptions to that rule, but I work close to home, and I work for good people, and they take care of me. And, it's one of them things where I'm blessed. I don't want nobody crying for me, but the bottom line is the bottom line.
Yeah.
Is I make more per hour, but I have a lot less. And Vince, I've never gone to the grocery store. In fact, my ex-wife used to kill her because I wouldn't buy stuff. Did you buy it on sale? What who cares? I wanted it. Now
I know.
go to the
I'm awful
store.
with that, too.
I don't buy meat unless it's on sale. I can't afford it.
I know. It's insane. The prices are just so out of control that even stupid men like us are looking at the labels going, whoa, that seems a little too expensive. Hey, Kevin,
Yeah.
you said yesterday you had this conversation with your employer, and they said that they previously had given you a guarantee of 40 hours a week. Now they're saying that guarantee is not on anymore. You may be working shorter weeks now.
I'm only working whatever hours I get. And in fact, about right around this time, I used to do between 12 to 15 jobs, houses a week, 5-6 days, couple a day, sometimes 3 if they're small. And now I'm down to 5 or 6. And I mean, I understand, like I told my boss, I'm not happy about it, but, I understand it. But, and because of the quality of life that I have working here, I'll stay here. But, the thing is, my boss, what scared me was, he said, if it gets any worse, we might have to close the doors, because it's just with the cost of fuel and parts for these machines and things break down. I mean, it's just getting bad.
Yeah, that sounds like a real business where you have to balance all these things out, not the way the government handles these things. Kevin, thank you very much. I appreciate the calls as always. It's so fascinating, the job you do. I hope you get more hours, get as many as you'd like. I hope that happens for you in the future. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Vince.
All right, that's Kevin in Manassas. Let's take Mark in Landover Hills now on this topic as well, how the economy is doing for you. Mark, good afternoon, sir.
Top of the day to you, Vince, as always.
Thank you, Mark.
Hey, buddy, I just wanted to tell you that as far as the economy goes, I think that the current administration is living in a dream world, and I want to say that I'm on a fixed income, living on Social Security, and man, I can tell you that bump that we got last year that they thought was going to be so great for everybody, hey, that was nice, but I can tell you it didn't keep up with the way your call screener, I told him I'd talk about it because I've been doing it my whole life. Man, who's paying attention in the grocery stores? I mean, Vince, they had the big fluctuation with the eggs, but all the other stuff has stayed up pretty much where it's been.
Right. And fuel in particular and food, those are the big ones, are so much more expensive now than when Joe Biden took office. And if you get a little cost of living adjustment on Social Security, that's fine. They're sending more. That's good that they're sending a little bit more money. But that money's not keeping pace, Mark?
No, sir. And here's a good example for you, Vince, and something that everybody knows about. Before Biden and them got control, on the average, the price per gallon of LP fuel, LP gas, everybody uses it and knows what it is. I was paying $2. Right now, Vince, even with Biden and them bragging about all the dropping of fuel prices, and hey, that's what LP gas comes from. It's all interrelated, but apparently they can't make the assumption that it isn't.
Right.
And now it's $3.49 and it hadn't dropped. Vince.
Have you noticed, Mark, that they only compare last year's numbers? They don't actually talk about the numbers at the beginning of his administration?
That's right, Vince. They are the biggest scripters since Hollywood. I think it comes from them watching the TV and they think they're living in Disneyland or something.
Yeah, a lot of con work in that family. So I guess Joe is right about that when it comes to his son. He is a con artist. It is crazy. So and Mark, I'm looking at these numbers. We'll get into it with EJ here coming up. EJ Antoni is joining us here minutes away. But the average American household right now, according to CBS, needs to spend an additional, you ready for this number? $11,434 a year just to maintain the same standard of living that they had when Joe Biden became president of the United States. So $12,000 more per year just to live the same life they did before. And guess what? A lot of people, Mark, obviously, they can't live that life anymore. They've had to make some sacrifices here.
Vince, a lot of people are making sacrifices, and you know who it's hurting the worst, buddy. And hey, I'm one of them, and I did it to myself, and I'm trying to make it the best I can, buddy.
Mark, thank you for the call, sir. Really appreciate that.
Take care of yourself, Vince, and I'll be calling back, man, with more info.
Please do. I appreciate it. I really do. And you've got – yes, sir. Yes, sir. You've got this economy. Americans are blowing through their savings, too, to the extent that they have savings. I don't know. Who has savings left? Because the numbers we keep hearing are 60 to 70% of the public is living paycheck to paycheck, which means they do not have savings. Remember that survey they used to do? It's like if you had an unexpected $1,000 expense, could you afford it? Do you have the money to cover it? And nowadays, it's like nobody's got that. The huge majorities of the public does not have $1,000 on standby in the event that they need it. So where do you get $1,000 from if you're in that situation? Well, credit cards. Like, got to put it on the credit card. Over $1 trillion in credit card debt now. We've never had that much in the entire country in our history. And now those interest rates are skyrocketing, and that means that, that $1,000 payment, not too long from now, it's going to be worth a lot more. $1,200 payback, you're going to have a lot more money to pay back as a result of that. So Americans are blowing through their savings. Axios has a report today. Evidence is stacking up showing Americans are saving less and drawing down their existing savings cushions. The share of adults who say that they can cover 6 months of expenses. 6 months. We used to call that an emergency fund. Can you cover 6 months of expenses? If everything collapses, if your job falls out, you're not getting a paycheck, do you have 6 months of expenses socked away? That share is now considerably lower than it was last year. So the emergency reserves are gone. The share that simply don't know how long their savings will carry them has grown to about 21%. 21% of Americans saying that they're not even sure how far they can make it. That's up from 15% in July of last year. So all this happy-go-lucky talk from the White House, does it drive you crazy? I mean, it is maddening. It's gaslighting is what it is. They're coming out and going, don't you believe this? Don't look at your bank account. Don't look. It's like an abusive spouse or something. Don't look at the bank account. Don't you keep your eyes away from that thing. And I'm cutting off your access. They don't want you looking. They don't want you to know how much you have, how much less you have. So that's what's happening. And everybody's noticing it. NBC says less than half of Latino voters approve of the job that President Joe Biden is doing. This is a big one. I've got to get into some of this demographic data, but the Democrats are freaking out that they're losing base after base after base. People that they thought were reliable votes for them for years. Oh, don't vote for us. They take them for granted. Here's what NBC has to say about Latino voters. Stand by. I'm going to fix this up for you. Latino voters, NBC.
But less than half of voters approve of the job that President Joe Biden is doing currently in the White House, which is a 17% drop in approval since last year.
Yeah. And what do Latino voters care about? How about feeding their families? Just like everybody else. It's like, it's crazy that we have to break things down by these types of demographics because, as James Carville once said, it's the economy, stupid. It's the economy. And everybody's taking it in the shorts here. I guess except for the Biden family. Jim is calling in from Louisa now, line 2. Jim, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince, like one of your callers just said on LP gas, I live out in the country. We use propane for the heat, and I had an agreement with a provider, $100 a month, and then they settle up at the end of the year, and I usually have a little surplus. But, over a year ago, it went up to $235 a month.
Whoa.
And then the groceries, my wife and I, kids are all out of the house, but we would get by with, about $250 every week to 10 days. And then all of a sudden, overnight, roughly 2 years ago, it's $100 more. And now it's always over $400 for pretty much the same stuff.
For how many people?
I think for just my wife and I. To do a good grocery shop, you're going to be paying close to $400. And I think your figures of the average household needing about $11,000 more per year, I think that's spot on.
It's amazing, isn't it? I remember being a kid, if we ever spent $100 at the grocery store, $100, that's a lot of money to spend at the grocery store. If you spent that much, you were pushing multiple carts of food. There wasn't one cart, right? It was like if you spent $100, that family was coming through with multiple carts. And in my house, we had 3 boys. Sometimes there was a lot of food in there. But over $100 was a big shop. It was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we spent that much. $400 for you and your wife over what time frame?
Yeah, I mean, back in the 80s when we first got married, $60 at the grocery store was, living pretty high.
That's amazing.
But yeah, I mean, just everything is just so much more expensive. And, $400 is I don't want to say the exception, but frequently we're always over $300 and close to $400, sometimes over $400. And, if we're having company like the kids or grandkids are going to come visit, like over the 4th of July, I mean, that's a $700 shop easy, for the food to feed everybody.
Holy cow.
Anyway, it's crazy. But the gas, I mean, that just more than doubled overnight. And the provider, I don't think they're milking it. They just said, hey, this is our cost.
Of course. Just
so you don't get a whopper bill at the end of the year. We recommend your monthly payment increase to $235. Otherwise, you will get a whopper bill at the end of the year. And but it went from $100 to $235 a month. For propane gas.
So, are you excited that Biden wants to get rid of all of your gas power?
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, they're. Good luck in implementing that in rural farm country in Central Virginia.
Totally. It's like. We're going to do the impossible. How about not? How about you stop that? That's insane.
The town of Louisa's favorite son is Patrick Henry. Give me liberty or give me death. That's where he was from, and that's kind of the attitude of the population.
Yeah, I know where Patrick Henry is on the gas stove debate. I know exactly where he is. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate the call.
You bet.
A lot of big grocery expenses, big gas expenses. Everybody's feeling that for sure. Despite Biden has all of his meals prepared for him. They blend them and then serve them to him in a spoon. It's 4:22. Let's check in on the phones. We have Leo calling in from Colorado, line 3. Leo, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show, sir.
Hey, Vince. I just wanted to throw in there real quick. I don't know if you touched on it. I was just dialing in. But, fuel costs. I bought a diesel truck a couple years ago because it was like $1 cheaper than regular. Now it's $1 more. But that translates when you do the kind of the fuzzy math. Think about people complaining about food prices. How's our food get to market? Through trucks. Mm-hmm. So they're paying more. So they have to, the companies have to charge more. And it's a ripple effect. Joe Biden doesn't give a damn when he gets on Air Force One, how much it costs, $100,000 an hour to fly that aircraft, or getting, running all the vehicles in his, motorcades. They don't care. He doesn't care. He doesn't get out there. The only time he gets out in public is to go get his ice cream. He doesn't get it. He's getting his millions of dollars from these foreign countries and actors. They don't care. They're looking down on us, and it's just getting worse day in, day out. And it's going to get worse until the election. And Lord help this country if it gets stolen again. Because I'm a big advocate. It got stolen. When you have 5 counties or states that shut down polling at the same time, and then 5 hours later came back.
Yeah,
Trump leading in all those.
Leo, what would ever lead you not to trust our government? How did you arrive at this? It is amazing, isn't it?
I think I woke up one day.
Leo, thank you. I appreciate the call as always. And Leo's right? He's right about all of it. The efforts to just ignore the electorate, to subvert them, to just appoint people into positions that don't deserve them. And especially about the role that energy plays in everything. You're paying more for everything. Diesel's up. Yeah, there's a relationship there too. EJ Antoni is going to join us next. We'll talk the economy with him. Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 4:36 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up today on the program, we're going to be joined by Julie Kelly at 5:30. We'll talk to her about Jack Smith's efforts to, sweep up your Twitter account if you were one of the people who liked or retweeted a guy called Donald Trump. Turns out Jack Smith was after that information. Julie will explain. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Let's talk about the economy. Americans feeling very down on it, as we've been going over. Americans are getting walloped right now. CBS reports that Americans need an extra $11,400 today just to afford the basics, the average American household, just to get back to what the standard of living they had in January of 2021. And meanwhile, Americans are absolutely blowing through their savings. More and more Americans saying they just don't have the money anymore. A lot more credit card debt going on. For the update on this story, we turn to the guy we always turn to as our in-house economist and a research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, EJ Antoni joins us. EJ, good afternoon to you, sir.
Vince, good afternoon to you, too. Thank you for having me.
Now, it has to be good to see CBS finally coming around to admitting that Americans are poorer now. And I realize that you have a little bit different math than they do, but the same core point, which is that Americans are very much in the mode of having to play catch-up now, aren't they?
Oh, 100%. And unfortunately, since June of last year, we've just essentially been on a treadmill, and people haven't been able to gain any ground back at all. In other words, yes, people's wages have gone up, but it's basically just equaled how much prices have gone up, so you're not actually any better off. So after a tremendous drop from January of 2021 to June of 2022, we've basically just been in a holding pattern ever since.
Yeah, it's a big deal. So the White House is still posting things to their Instagram account and insisting from the lectern that everything is fine. And in fact, I saw the other day that the White House posted that small business is booming in the United States. Would you agree with that assessment, that small business is booming?
Well, don't ask me. Ask small businesses themselves. And if you look at the small business optimism index, it has just absolutely collapsed under this president. It is at levels not seen in a decade. So the idea that somehow small businesses are doing well is just utter nonsense.
Yeah, I do think this strikes me as also sleight of hand. So, for instance, like everything the White House does, one of their claims they make is share of families owning a business is up by 9%, with large increases among Black and Hispanic households. You know, it's funny when they make a claim like that, I can't help but think these are people trying to make ends meet. Started a business. What does that mean? They did an Etsy shop. They have a Zazzle t-shirt store now. People are going out of their way to figure out ways to make additional money just to cover the shortfall. Am I right on that?
Well, there's a couple of things to remember. One, the number of small businesses just got absolutely crushed during the pandemic because so many people were told they weren't allowed to go to work, and we had so many supply chain problems, et cetera, that a lot of businesses simply went under and have never come back.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why the numbers in terms of a percentage change look inflated today. But another thing to remember is that the info on the number of small businesses in this country is actually very delayed. So what we use is a figure from the Census Bureau that projects, based on new business applications, how many small businesses we actually have today. But the problem is that if you have a flood of new applications and a relatively small number of those actually turn into real startups that end up employing people, you're going to get an overinflated sense of how things are going right now.
So when the White House puts out a number like that, they're not talking about actual established small businesses. They're talking about people who have applied?
That's right. When we look at business formation statistics, those things are actually projections based on applications.
That'd be like somebody calling themselves a Pulitzer nominee because they paid the fee and submitted their story. Like, I'm a Pulitzer nominee. What is that? That doesn't mean anything.
No, but I mean, look at everything this White House talks about when they reference the economy. It's all utter nonsense. You know, just the other day, Biden was talking about how prices are still too high, and he was calling on businesses to stop gouging consumers and to stop being greedy. Mr. President, please explain to me how it is greedy for a business to increase prices by 17%, but to have its own costs go up by 18%. There's a reason why, adjusted for inflation, corporate profits have fallen on average for the last 6 quarters. If these businesses are being greedy, I think they're doing it quite wrong.
Yeah, and this whole, it's funny, since you brought up the topic, it's funny, the White House has been obsessed with this junk fees topic. They're like, we need to stop junk fees. We need to stop corporate companies from tacking on extra fees on it. And that's, and on first blush, you hear that and you're like, yeah, let's stop junk fees. But all it means is, it's just like, EJ, you tell me, you're the economist here, but when, it used to be when you bought an airline ticket, they would lump in everything in the same price. But then the airlines were trying to underbid each other for your business. So what they did was they strip out all the stuff that you would get normally, and then they put a really low price on the website, And they say, okay, look, you get the flight. But then, oh, actually, if you want what comes with the flight, if you want the food and the drink and the luggage, and they just tack it on as extra fees. They make it seem like it's a la carte instead of what they had in the first place. So it's literally just a pricing mechanism designed to attract your business. But in the end, you're still going to have to pay that, whether it's a junk fee or not. Am I right?
Oh, 100%. And you can call anything you want a junk fee. It doesn't actually make it a junk fee. And at the end of the day, I don't think the person who has to pay it is really concerned with the nomenclature you're going to use. I actually testified in front of a Senate subcommittee earlier this year on so-called junk fees within the rental market, and some of the other people who were testifying were trying to pin the ridiculous increase in rent we've seen the last couple of years on these so-called junk fees, except that just doesn't stand up to the facts. When base rents have increased far more than the increases for things like trash collection or pest control or pet fees, whatever the case may be, it also doesn't at all explain the overall increase in housing, because it's not just rents that have gone through the roof, right? It's the cost of owning a home that's prohibitively expensive today. Please explain to me what junk fees are involved when someone is trying to sell you their home.
Let me go back to something that was an exchange at the White House earlier this week. Fox News' Peter Doocy was asking Coringe about the fact that Americans don't think the economy is doing well, despite what she keeps on insisting. Her notes say it's doing well, so it must be doing well. She read it off the paper. And he says, but wait a minute, Americans aren't buying this. And so she blamed, you guessed it, Donald Trump. Listen.
But why do you think it is that when you say the economy is improving and President Biden says the economy is improving, that a majority of Americans outside of this building are not buying it?
So here's the thing. When we walked into this administration, the economy was on a tailspin.
What?
That is the fact. Because of the last administration, because of the Trump administration, because of how they dealt with COVID and the pandemic, because they didn't have a comprehensive plan.
And so we grabbed the throttle and we decided, let's crash the whole plane. But what is she even talking about?
She's talking about a lie, in short. And I don't like using that word about public figures, but there's nothing else you can call that. It's an absolute lie. The economy was in a tailspin. It was growing at a $1.5 trillion annualized rate. Inflation was a mere 1.4%. And in 18 months from taking office, this administration managed to not only deliver 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth, but to drive inflation so high that it was rising about as fast in a single month as it rose in the entire year before Biden took office. And that inflation has absolutely ravaged American families' budgets. I mean, Vince, it's so bad that people today are now using this buy now, pay later option in spades. We're talking billions of dollars more this Christmas season. If you look at how consumers are doing, they not only have over $1 trillion of credit card debt today, but 25% of Americans, a full quarter, are still trying to pay off all of the debt they accrued from their Christmas shopping last year. I mean, the idea that somehow things were terrible and have been made better, it's just laughable.
It's at this moment I want to remind people of the fact that Joe Biden at one point did admit that it was his fault that inflation was going up so high. And I don't think any other show on radio has ever played this clip as much as we have. I don't even know if they've ever played it. November 14th, 2021, Joe Biden, the Port of Baltimore, had this to say.
It can delay shipment of furniture or clothing, reduce worldwide supply, and driving up prices here in America. And the irony is people have more money now because of the first major piece of legislation I passed. You all got checks for $1,400. You got checks for a whole range of things. If you're a mom and you have kids under the age of 7, you're getting $300 a month. And if it's over 7 to 17, you're getting $360 a month, like wealthy people used to do when they get back tax returns. It changed people's lives. But what happens if there's nothing to buy, you got more money, you compete for getting it there, it creates a real problem.
It creates a real problem. There's nothing to buy because we printed all this cash and we didn't realize it would wreck the economy. That's Joe Biden admitting that, EJ.
Oh, yes. In one of his few moments of mental, awareness, he actually was able to put 2 and 2 together and put and and speak the obvious. I mean, it's absolutely appalling that these people who caused the problem and now gaslight the American people into not only trying to get them to believe that there is no problem, but that they're somehow part of the solution. I mean, one of your previous callers, Kevin, the crane operator, he really, really hit the nail on the head when he talked about just how tough it is out there for not only consumers, but for businesses too. And it speaks to just how out of touch our elites are, that they can talk about these problems the way they do.
Yeah, well, this is in terms of political liability, this is a massive one for Joe Biden. I mean, nobody, like maybe inside the White House, they think the economy is doing well or something. Somebody, one of Corinne's staff members or Corinne herself. But outside of that, people do not think this way. And you've got people of all ages who are just totally alienated by the state of this economy. And my goodness, please let it result in a changing of the guard so we can get out of this mess. But, these numbers are wild. I know one other piece here that I want to ask you about, EJ Antoni, because I know at its core you are a monetary policy guy. And you follow, especially the Federal Reserve and these interest rates. I'm seeing reports today that mortgage rates are going to hold at about where they are, at least through the next year. And they're way up from where they used to be under Trump. What do you see as you project forward with these interest rates and all of this debt?
Well, we've seen mortgage rates come down a little bit the last couple of weeks. We're talking, tenths of a percent here, no major jumps, but that's because the demand for mortgages has just fallen off a cliff. Nobody can afford a home today, not at these prices and these interest rates. Now, unfortunately, we don't have any good choices here because Treasury continues borrowing so much money. Either A, interest rates are going to have to stay high, or B, the Fed is going to allow interest rates to come down by creating more money. But then we're right back on the inflation bandwagon. So unfortunately, what that would do is then drive home prices back up. And so the actual amount it costs you to afford a home is not going to go down.
All right. EJ Antoni, again, research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, the in-house economist for this program. Thank you, sir. Good to have you with us today. Let's take a phone call. I've got Denise calling in from Annapolis. Line 5, Denise, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hello.
Hey, good afternoon, Vince. I wanted to ask your opinion about the coverage of the Rosalynn Carter Memorial yesterday, where the media decided to publish some pretty unflattering photographs of our former president who's been in hospice since February. There was a time that the media would treat someone's physical condition with a little bit more respect. And I just wondered what you thought of that, and also people slamming Melania because she wasn't in all black. And it just was kind of petty and distasteful, I thought.
Yeah, it was. And I could see it coming a million miles away, Denise. I was yesterday kind of checking in. I wasn't watching every moment of the funeral, but I did see some images coming out of it. And you could see Melania's outfit, it stands out in the crowd. She always stands out in the crowd. Melania Trump always stands out like in every crowd, no matter what her outfit is. But it was lighter than everybody else's. If you actually get up close to it, it's gray. It's not white, but it looks white from a distance. Right. And I knew as soon as I saw that, I said, I know what the headlines are going to be. I said, didn't I? I told Corey yesterday, I know what they're going to do with this. They're going to attack Melania Trump. They're going to say she's disrespectful. How come she didn't wear black? Who does she think she is? She's there for herself, and treat her like utter garbage. A woman who I think has said the fewest words of any first lady who's ever held the office. Melania Trump was barely heard from when she was, and the media didn't want to hear from her. They didn't ask her any questions. They didn't treat her well. And so, so yesterday, of course, that's exactly what happened. I saw it all over the place. People attacking Melania Trump for being a decent human being. Melania Trump showed up to that funeral yesterday at the invitation of Mrs. Carter. Mrs. Carter made a decision who she wanted there. And among the people she wanted were all of the living first ladies. And that was a decent thing on her part. It's rare now to find decency among these Democrats. She showed it and invited her. Yeah. And how do the Democrats who consumed that funeral yesterday react to it? By treating her like garbage. And apparently you said you saw a lot of footage of Jimmy Carter that was unflattering, given his very late age state.
It was just sad because he's been in hospice since like February, and he had his mouth open, and it just there was a time that the press would treat that kind of physical condition of a former leader, with a little more respect and dignity than just putting it out there, for all the world to see. I mean, it's great that he was there, but it was just heartbreaking to see. And, I never agreed with his politics, but, show the man some respect. He's grieving for his wife.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I definitely don't agree with his politics. But it is interesting, isn't it, that he's like one of the only former presidents of the United States who didn't get filthy rich because of it? He left. His post-presidency, he just stayed poor. And he worked, he did Habitat for Humanity stuff. Kind of neat. And his wife doing a very decent thing in her final act, inviting all the first ladies. The Democrats not on board with that. They don't like that, treating Melania Trump with decency. So they attacked her. That's how they sought to remember Rosalind Carter yesterday, by exploiting the funeral to attack Melania Trump. That's the world we're living in now. Hey, coming up on the program, we're going to be joined by Julie Kelly. She's taking a close look at the latest efforts by the government to come after people who didn't vote for Biden.